right, guys, welcome to Graphic Novel Geeks. We're gonna have an episode where we interview Mr. Morgan Hampton today, and because I'm on my Zoom, I probably have to cut it at 40 minutes and do it again, and then I'll put it together and do I'll splice it together. All right, want to take it away, Joe?
Yeah, all right. Morning of technical difficulties, but we're there. We're there. But yeah, so no, we got Morgan Hampton here with us today. Good friend of mine, very talented writer. Um, his credits include Hot Dog Water, Aurora, the DC Power Anthology, the Milestone Initiative Anthology, and most recently Cyborg. So yeah, definitely quite busy getting some stuff done.
Absolutely.
Um, I've enjoyed most of it, and so that just makes me wonder, why writing? Like, what made you want to become a writer?
That's a good
Yeah,
question.
yeah, yeah. The hard question first. Yeah. Mhm.
I think looking back on my life, so I have a bleeding disorder called hemophilia, which is basically it's a physical disability where basically the way I like to explain it is I'm like the opposite of Wolverine. He has a healing factor where he heals instantly from everything, and I heal like from nothing, none of the time, without the assistance of like medication. Growing up, I was stuck at home a lot, watching a lot of TV, playing a lot of video games because like I couldn't go out and do as much as I wanted to do. And then, obviously I read a lot of comics as well. So I think as I got older, I realized that I liked how different aspects of storytelling affected me. And I would like to, participate in doing that for other people because it felt like something that feasibly that I could do when there was so much in my life that I felt like I couldn't do, if that makes sense. And it's on top of that, just writing. I find it fun when it's going well, and I it
Right.
provides me with a sense of purpose. When I can kind of pull something from my brain and put it onto the page and have it be this like. So yeah, that's pretty much why.
Okay. What about inspirations? Some of your favorite comics?
Oh man, there's so many.
Like the comics or other inspirations, the
Yeah,
things that if you had not been exposed to them, would have probably not set you on this trajectory. Like
yeah,
like the inspirations that you could not live without, the things that made you who you are as a
yeah.
writer,
I'll,
that
I'll say
made you want to write.
I'll say comic wise. When I was really young, like 8, 9, 10, I read a lot of comics, but I wasn't really into like the continuity of things. I just read them because I thought they looked cool.
Sure.
So my dad, I think this is kind of what got me into comics. He had this in his basement, just like a bunch of boxes filled with comics, just random stuff. Some of it was super
Okay.
old, some of it was kind of recent. And this was the late 90s. So I guess I was even younger than that. I was like maybe 6 or 7. Um, and I would just go through those boxes. And I remember one of the first comics that like really stuck with me. It's really random. It was a DC imprint. I think it was Dan Jurgens.
Mm.
He had this imprint called Tangent Comic at DC, where it was basically all the characters that we know and love like in name only, but their origins were completely different. Their powers were completely different. Like Superman was like this black shaman dude. The Flash had like light powers. Like it was really cool. Like, and I'm just like, I was like, 6 or 7, and I'm like, I know all these characters, but like this was like my introduction to like the idea of like a multiverse or alternate
Hmm.
dimensions. And I'm like, oh, this is incredible. Like I was just eating it up. And then as I got a little bit older, I'd say a lot of my inspiration came more from comic book like TV shows, like the Teen Titans show, the Justice
Hmm.
League show, and like Static Shock and stuff like that. I grew up with that, and I'm just like, these are some of the best things I've ever seen in my life, and I still think that now. So I think that's kind of what inspired me, just to become like a comic book fan, and then that leads into like Static Shock and the Justice League show in particular,
Hmm. Hmm.
Dwayne McDuffie properties, or
Yes,
Dwayne
sir.
McDuffie worked on them. So as I got older and realized like who he was, I'm just like, oh, this guy is really dope. I'd like to be
Yeah.
like him and do what he does. So yeah.
Yeah, no, well said. No, we kind of have that in common where, once I found out who McDuffie was, yeah, that definitely sent me down a serious path of pursuing comics or
Yeah,
even animation for that matter, because we know he was the GOAT, you know.
absolutely.
But yeah, no, okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. Hmm, interesting. So when you finally got serious and buckled down, which I assume was around 2019 when a certain anthology came out that you kind of debuted at a little known convention in Oakland.
Yeah.
A little book called Hot Dog Water. Can you talk about that? How did that
Yeah.
come about?
Yeah, so actually, like it debuted in 2019, but that was like a labor of love for like 3 years, honestly.
Okay, okay.
I graduated with my undergrad in creative writing in 2016, and as soon as I graduated, I was like, I think I want to write comics. So I
Mhm.
just kind of like hit the ground running on trying to figure out how to do that, uh, from a craft standpoint, but then like from like a monetary standpoint.
Ha, right.
And it took me a minute to figure it out, like 'cause it's a hard industry to just kind of like crack into.
Oh yeah.
But things for me started at Silicon Valley Comic Con in 2017.
Okay.
That's when I met a lot of my friends I'm still friends with now. I think you were there, but I didn't meet you there. Uh,
I was 2018, I
yeah, we
believe.
met in
Yeah.
2018, but I met Mike there,
Right.
our good friend Mike, and then I met Dave Law there, who did the
Mhm.
cover art for Hot Dog Water and also the story that's in there that I wrote, The Rapture. We met in 2017 at Silicon Valley Comic Con. We were in line for like a how to break into comics panel, and we just started talking, and then we just became friends from there. But going back to how Hot Dog Water started specifically, it was me and my friends from undergrad, all just like trying to figure out how to do it, because I think the thing that they told us in undergrad, to become a writer, the easiest thing is to publish your friends, right? So we were just like, why
Mhm.
don't we figure out how to do that ourselves and just like help each other publish our own thing, so it'll be a lot easier for us to get something out there into the world. So we came out with this idea for Hot Dog Water. We just kind of all wrote stories and then would put them together, and then we had three people as opposed to one, actually six people, because we had three writers too, six people promoting the book as opposed to just one or three of us.
Yeah,
And
it's helpful.
that would help us get some traction and some money so we can publish the thing. And that's exactly what we did. And it's called Hot Dog Water for absolutely no reason. None of the stories in the book have anything to do with hot dog water, but I think my friend Anthony wanted to name it something like really ominous. Like I really don't remember what it was, but it was something like along the lines of like Dante's Inferno. And I'm just like, what is
Oh
that?
wow.
I was like,
What?
no. I was like, this should be, this is an anthology. None of these stories are connected. We kind of dropped the ball on that. We don't have a theme for this anthology. How are we gonna advertise it? We need to have shock value. So let's just call it Hot Dog Water, because what the fuck is that? People are gonna look at that and they're gonna instantly be like, can you tell me about this book? And in hindsight, like it worked, because people always see that and they're like, what the hell is this? Please tell me about it. Um, so yeah, it's got three stories in there from three different creative teams, which is three writers and three artists. And it's an eclectic mix of there's like a folk tale, there's a tale in there, and there's like a western. So yeah.
You have your copy on hand at the moment that you can hold up?
I'm out of copies, believe it or not. I have no more copies of Hot Dog.
Oh man, because like my copy is actually at my parents' house right now. I'm like,
Oh
I
man,
want to hold it up. But yeah.
yeah, no,
But
I have nothing. I need to do a second print on it for sure.
so when is that second print happening?
As soon as I can get some money.
Fair
There
enough.
we go.
Fair enough.
No, I got to talk to Nate and Anthony, the other two guys on the book, and see if we can pull together some money just to do another print run of like 100 copies or something. Because none of us have been tabling or anything, but I sold out at the last couple conventions that I did do right before COVID, so
Nice.
it's not really too much of a pressing thing to have at the moment. But once I'm done with school, I do want to table a lot more, and I want to have more books on my table. So within the next couple months to a year, I'll do another printing of it for sure.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
I know there's an event coming up in Oakland in August. I don't
Yes.
know if you were gonna have some. Is that too soon to
I think
expect a
that's
few
too
issues?
soon.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
fair enough.
just I think printing wise, like that's like just under a month away. That's a tight squeeze.
Sure, sure. Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I got a bunch of Cyborg and DC Power and Milestone,
Nice,
so I'll have stuff.
nice.
Yeah,
You got more copies of Power.
I've got like 5 of those.
Okay,
We
okay.
sold most of those. We did a signing for at Golden Apple Comics on
Gotcha.
Melrose back in like February, and they sold out in the store really quick, and then they had us bring our comps, and we almost all sold out of our comps as well. So
Very
they gave
nice.
us 30 comps each, and I have 5 left.
Okay,
Like we cleaned out at that signing. It was crazy.
dope. Okay, that's cool. All right. So, all right. So, while we are on the subject of
Yeah.
anthologies, and because yeah, I think it's kind of interesting because I did the opposite. Like, no one told me to do shorts first. I
Yeah.
just came out the gate and just did like long form narrative books.
Yeah.
Though the route you described seems way more efficient and cost effective to maybe break in a little bit easier. So I think for viewers, that's some good information to know, to also, let them know you can get something done, because maybe a longer project will be overwhelming. But
Yeah.
if you can get something like 8 pages, you know, you're learning the craft like you did. You
Exactly.
just it's a crash course. Like, no one's like teaching you specifically,
Yeah.
but you at least come out of it with a product,
Right.
and you say, oh, I actually technically have produced a professional looking comic, and then hopefully take it from there, and
Yeah.
then kind of level up, as I would say, and then as you get more money, kind of jump into the deeper end of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
but
Yeah, no,
but yeah.
shout out David Walker for that. He's the one who gave me the advice. Previous writer on
Yeah.
Cyborg, he writes Bitterroot right now, and Planet Apes as well. He was one of the
Hmm.
people who told me like just start out small. And I took that and
Nice.
ran with it, and yeah, I think it's paid off.
Yeah.
For sure.
No, that's really excellent advice. But yeah, then you took that and continued that, and you ran with it. And instead of doing, I guess, like a larger collaboration, like with multiple stories by different people, you decided to actually make your own.
Yes, you got that one. Yeah,
So yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I got Aurora right here. Got that
yeah.
signature right there too.
Very
Yeah,
good
yeah,
signature. I'm so sorry.
yeah. No, it's all good. But yeah, but earlier on you talked about hemophilia.
Yeah.
Um, you have a story in here called Scar Tissue,
Mm.
and which clearly is autobiographical,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
So approaching a story, I guess, this kind of personal, I mean, like, how did you kind of go about that? Like, what was that process like for you?
Yeah. So I guess long story short, going back to hot dog water a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Scar tissue. The artist on that is Maisha. I met her at Emerald City Comic Con. She's a great artist, and she captured my likeness and my family's likeness really well in the story. But going back to hot dog water, it was initially going to be a really ambitious anthology. We were like, let's all write 3 stories and have different creative teams for each one, and then we'll publish this 100-page book or whatever. And then we quickly realized that like that was going to be way too ambitious for a bunch of people that have never done anything in comics before. Oh, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to get people to pay us this much money to publish this book. So that's why
Right.
Hot Dog Water ended up being like 30 pages and then 1 story from each. So all the stories that are in Aurora were actually stories that I was gonna have in the longer version of Hot Dog Water, and it ended up being that like I had gotten pretty much all of my artwork done for Hot Dog Water for all of my stories before the first book even came out. But then we just ended up, like I said, putting those 3 stories in that first book, and then I was just sitting on those other stories for a long time. Like they were available digitally or whatever, but I didn't have a physical copy. So I'm like,
Oh, okay.
last
So
summer,
like the actual artwork, like the lettering, everything was already done for each
yeah.
one, and they were just sitting.
Like the most recent ones,
Okay.
like Scar Tissue, I wrote that story, or that art was done like before Hot Dog Water came out. So it was like
Oh, okay.
2018. And then the script for Brutal Intuition, which is like my version of like it's like the reverse Minority Report.
Yeah.
I had written that in 2018. I didn't have art yet, and then the most recent one was the Gulf Stream, which is the one with Malcolm
Mm-hmm.
Johnson's art. That's the first story in the book. That one I finished maybe like a couple months before I published this, but most of those stories were written already. And I'm just like, I should publish this and have it physically
Yeah.
to give out to people. And then
Exactly.
when I finished the Milestone Initiative, and I went to Comic-Con last year, San Diego Comic-Con. I'm like, I know a bunch of editors now. They told us, the best way to get work is to obviously reach out and show them stuff that you've done. And I'm
Sure.
like, Hot Dog Water's not enough. That's just one story. But now I have Aurora. This has 3 stories, and they're all different genres. That should be a good example of the different styles that I can do, right? So that's exactly what I did. I went to Comic-Con and I took a whole bunch of copies of Aurora and I just passed them out to drunk editors at after parties and stuff. And I'm sure they probably threw them away. That's fine. But I sent like follow-up emails like the following week, like, hey, remember me? I gave you this copy. Here's a digital copy just in case you lost it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
just like fostering relationships with people that way. So yeah, that's the long story short with that. But I'm incredibly proud of that book because like you said, it's all me. It's all different creative teams, myself, and finding different artists for everything because I'm on the book too. So not the lettering, obviously, but I like commission people. But like the cover was done by Taya Ancom, who did the art for my story in anthology. I was like, hey, I know you like the title image was done by my old roommate, Angel. I was like, can you give me something that looks kind of like sci-fi, Yeah. So that was a lot of fun. And then I learned a lot about like InDesign and stuff because I put all the pages together and did all that on my own as well.
Wow.
I learned a lot doing that book for sure.
Huh,
Yeah, you might
InDesign.
actually be more skilled than me. I am terrible with InDesign. I'm going to talk to you to like format my books.
I'll send you some YouTube videos that I found that helped quite a bit. Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. But Aurora though, do you have copies presently? Can people get these now, or are we
Yeah.
waiting for print?
I have a bunch. I don't know how many I have. I printed,
Okay.
I think I printed either 100 or 75.
Okay.
And I maybe in the past year have given away to editors / sold 20 or 30. So I've still got quite a bit. So yeah, it's available. I can do, shipping, obviously, if you pay for shipping.
Cool. What's your I'm assuming, yeah, your social media handle so people can reach out to you, maybe
Yes.
send you a message if they want a book shipped?
Yeah, it's a lot of the same letters, so I know it's gonna be confusing. It's at Millennial. It's MOELLENNIAL. Basically, it's like millennial because I'm a millennial and my name is also Mo. So I just like and I'm millennial on literally every platform, Twitter until that sinks, Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, all that stuff.
Okay. So folks can go follow you on social media and slide into those DMs and figure out how to get a book.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right. So yeah, just leveling up here, started with an anthology, with friends, one story, moved up to one that had 3 stories, one very personal. And then an opportunity came along. Like you already you mentioned it very briefly, but yeah, this thing here. So this, as I've mentioned before on this channel, Milestone, a company that was started back in the early 90s, very big deal, Black comic book company, financed by DC, great people like Dwayne McDuffie, we discussed earlier, Dennis Cowan, Derek Dingle, etc. And then finally they made a comeback, which is a very good thing, and are doing great work in terms of actually giving new artists opportunities. And they launched their inaugural Milestone Initiative program that Morgan was, fortunate enough to be a part of. So I don't know how much you can talk about this, but definitely, share what you can for some of the viewers out here, like how that kind of went, and just I'm assuming very positive.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think at this point I can talk about whatever. It's been a while since we did it. And the program's over, and obviously a lot of us are getting other opportunities at this point. So yeah, no one said we can't really talk about it. So yeah, I guess I'll go to the beginning. Obviously, I've been a big fan of Milestone growing up and being in the comics as well. I remember it was I remember in 2020 during COVID, they, obviously there were no comic conventions, but DC did the whole DC fandom thing. Remember that? Where it was like this virtual like convention where they had panels and had announcements and stuff like that. And that's when they brought back Milestone, or they announced that Milestone was coming back. Because it had been in like some legal litigation for a couple years, and we weren't sure if or when it
Mhm.
was coming back. But this was like that first announcement, like, hey, it's happening. And I remember thinking, I'm like, yo, I want to be on. I need to write Milestone. I want to be on one of those books. Like this is crazy. I was like in a really negative spiral. I'm like, I'm not doing what I need to be doing. Like I should
I
be
feel it.
positioning myself to be in the running for one of these books, right? But obviously, like at that point, it was still COVID. I was working in retail, and like I hadn't started grad school yet, so I was just like doing the self-publishing thing, which I'm incredibly proud of. But I'm just like, I don't know how I can leap from this to that, right?
Sure.
Fast forward a year later, I ended up getting into grad school, and I think that actually might have helped me at least like from a legitimacy standpoint when I applied for the Milestone Initiative. So it was a year later when they during the next DC fandom when they announced that they were doing the Milestone Initiative, and I just started grad school, and I'm just like, I'm really busy, but I have to apply for this.
Hmm.
So I did, and what the application process was like. Obviously, they wanted like a cover letter resume type thing, but then they also wanted you to write a script as well. And I think the artist they wanted you to draw from a script. Um, but all the writers had like the same prompt. Uh, it was like tell a story about Rocket and I and they gave us some more like little details about
That's cool.
like what they wanted us to focus on with those two characters. But that's what I did. I wrote it, and they said no more than 8 pages, I believe.
Hmm.
So I did that, applied. That was in like November. Didn't hear back anything. Oh no, I had a follow-up interview in like December. And because they were like, your application was really good. And then in the interview, I actually talked to people because before it was just like, I applied. Um, and in the interview, there was like, it was like Tracy Martin, it was Jillian Adams, and Lawrence Gannum. They all work in like the talent relations side of DC. And they just asked me a bunch of questions, like, to reinforce some of the stuff that I submitted for the application. Um, and then I think Marquise Draper was in there, who's also my editor on Cyborg.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because all these people had input on who they were going to choose and all that type of stuff. Um, and they asked like characters that I would like to write, and I went on this long thing about Cyborg, which in hindsight, I think that's what got me the gig for Cyborg,
Yeah.
which is really funny. Um, but yeah, that went well, and I'm just like, they're like, okay, well, you'll know something by like, another month or so, like you'll know if you got in or not. Um, and then about 3 weeks to a month went by, and they were like, "Oh, hey!" Out of the blue, they were like, it was like a Wednesday or a Thursday, like, "Oh, hey, do you have time for a follow-up interview on Friday?" And I was like, because I've interviewed for a bunch of things so many times. I'm like, this is. I was feeling good about it after the first interview, but now they want a follow-up interview. There's probably like it's a competitive space, and now I got to prove myself again, and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that a second time. Like I feel so
Hmm.
bad, like I'm probably not gonna get this right. I'm like, yeah, but yeah, of course I'll do the follow-up interview. And the way it went was in the last interview, we actually just want you to watch something, and then we want to see your response to it. And I was like, okay, I hate spontaneity, so like this is gonna be horrible. And then what it was is they I guess I haven't told you this story, huh?
No.
What it was, the video that they showed us was a recording of, for me at least, Reginald Hudlin saying, "Congratulations, Morgan Hampton,
Oh.
been admitted to the inaugural class of the Milestone."
That's
And I was
cool.
like, "What?" And they
What?
were recording the whole thing, right? Uh, and actually, a lot of like our reactions to that, or what ended up in that Milestone documentary that came
That
out.
makes sense. That makes sense.
But that's how they framed the whole thing. They told us there was going to be a follow-up interview, and I was like, go time. I'm like, I gotta get this thing. I was so anxious, and then it was like, I already got it. Like they got me big time. So sorry, this is a very long-winded answer to your question.
And that's
But
fine.
from that point forward, they we went through the Milestone Initiative. It started March 10th, I remember. And it was basically just like a crash course into the industry. We they split us up. It was 24 people in total, 12 artists, 12 writers, and they split up the writers into a class with Amy Chu, and the artists were in a class with Tom Mandrake, and they were basically just teaching us the commercial craft of writing a comic. And at the same time, we all had stories that we were going to be developing, which is what in that book that you held up earlier. We had to pitch 3 story ideas, and then the editors gave us the one they liked the best. And then from there, we hit the ground running on writing our 8-page stories. And then we would like workshop that in class every week with Amy Chu and the rest of the writers. And then the artists would then take our scripts and start drawing them. And then that whole experience culminated with like a week-long summit in Burbank, where we all, because it was all virtual up until that point, where we all met up in Burbank. They flew us all out. Not me, I just drove because it's like 20 minutes away. And we had like basically just like seminars all week with different like comic book professionals coming in and talking with us, telling us about the craft, and encouraging us and all that type of stuff. And then it ended after that week, and I had a real like empty feeling inside. I think a lot of us did, because we were just like, that was a crazy couple months, like dream come true, and then it's all of a sudden just over, and we're just like,
now what?
What's happening? What are we gonna do now? You know, we were all anxious. We were just like, okay, this is probably it. We're probably never gonna do anything again.
Yeah.
And that's why I printed Aurora, and I'm like, nah, that. Sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on the show.
No. You can't, but I'll edit it out.
Okay.
We'll edit it out. That was 3.
My bad. I was like, screw that. I'm gonna print all these stories and take them to Comic-Con and try and get some opportunities that way. Cool. So yeah, that was a very long-winded answer to
no, it's like like in depth, so like people got like a sense of what the program was like. So no, that's pretty cool, because I don't think I've seen a lot of people talk about it, honestly. I mean, like, they know it exists or existed, and no one's really, I haven't seen articles or anything like going in depth with people being interviewed about it. So I think that's helped formation. Just people want to know how it went. So no, that's pretty cool.
Positive experience. I think you know, oftentimes you don't really see a lot of people come out of them.
Sure.
But I think what was great about the Milestone Initiative is it took like Milestone's kind of like pillar of foundation when it just comes from when it comes to like underrepresented, like raising up underrepresented voices.
Sure.
It took that, and that was the frame of the talent development program, where we were all underrepresented voices, and they were launching us into the industry, which is different than just like picking a bunch of random people and teaching them the craft. Like, this was a concerted effort to inject new lifeblood, new voices into the industry. So I think that's why so many of us have gotten opportunities after it, is that DC knew, like, we can't just have this talent development program. We actually have to make sure that these people are getting work after. We're doing our due diligence and we promised in the beginning, you know.
Yeah, for sure. All right. And we're back. Finishing up the chronicling, I guess, the rise here. So, you know, Hot Dog Water, Aurora, Milestone Initiative, and now the big conversation here.
Yeah.
You know, Cyborg. Before I, continue, I do have to say that I haven't read a lot of Cyborg. I've, obviously I've seen Teen Titans, and probably that was the most I got of him. And then Zack Snyder's Justice League, which actually did a pretty good job of humanizing him. And you can understand why Ray Fisher may have been a little upset, because the theatrical version had his whole storyline cut. Like, he was the heart of that movie. So Zack Snyder, he was right. He was the heart of the movie. Some people may not be fans of Zack, but that's something I think people can agree on, that Victor was the heart of that movie. So really humanizing him as a character. So my experience is like that movie, and then obviously Teen Titans. But now we have your run right now, which I think is actually continuing the trend of doing a good job of humanizing Victor. So definitely, I know this was definitely a big undertaking. No anxiety, no imposter syndrome, none of that. None of that was going on.
All of that. Yeah.
but yeah, no, definitely, man. Just how did you go about just really like approaching Victor as like, I guess a really thoroughly fleshed out 3-dimensional human being?
So it actually started with the DC Power anthology. That was my first the Milestone Initiative, and it was Marquise Draper who that interview with the Milestone Initiative that I told you about. And I reached out to him after Comic Con. I'm just like, hey, I'm willing and able for any opportunities that you might have for me, um, and I'm open to whatever. And he hit me up a couple weeks later, and he's like, hey, we're doing this DC Black History Month anthology. I remember what you said about Cyborg during your interview, because like I said, I went on this long soliloquy tangent about how much I like Cyborg and how much I think he's got like a lot of potential that we haven't seen. So he was like, "Would you like to write a Cyborg story for the DC Power Anthology?" And I'm just like, "I'm there, 100%. I need that. I need that, and I want that." So to answer your question, that's kind of where I started figuring out like how I wanted to flesh out Vic as a character. In this, I pretty much had freedom to do whatever I wanted because, in anthologies, they're not really connected to anything,
Sure.
or they don't have to be. So I'm like, I have a blank slate with Vic here. I can do what I want. So I wanted to focus on a lot of stuff that we end up seeing in the series. I wanted to humanize him a little bit, and I wanted to give him an angle that we haven't seen before. So I put him in therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The narration for that story, it's only 8 pages, but the narration is Victor journaling from therapy, and the backdrop of the story is that it's his mom's birthday today, and he's gotten to the point where most days are easy, but on his mom's birthday, like those are the hardest days because he's forced to remember what he's lost and what he's gone through. And another thing I wanted to do with that story in particular was I wanted to give a meaning for Booyah, which is like Cyborg's catchphrase. Because over the years, I've seen a lot of very justified arguments about people having issue with a Black character using a catchphrase like that. It just, kind of like a caricature type of thing, right?
I mean, it's not Sweet Christmas, but
Right, but it's not far behind either,
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I totally get that argument, even if I didn't personally kind of like come to that conclusion on my own. I totally understand why that's a thing that people take issue with. So I was like, maybe I can combine those two things, right? I can have it have something to do with his mom, and I can actually have a reason for this Black character to be saying this outrageous thing, So that's what I did. I tied it to. I tried to do like a Good Times TV show, like in the DC universe, and I made up this show called Malcolm and Max, which is like a single mother who's raising her kid, like a Gary Coleman type thing. And in the '70s sitcoms, they all had catchphrases like that, and "Booyah" feels like a catchphrase that came out of the '70s television show, right? So at the beginning of the story, he's watching this television show and you can see them saying "Booyah." And then throughout the story, he ends up fighting Livewire. And there's this like pivotal moment that he has when he's like knocked unconscious and he like speaks to his mom in a spiritual way. And when he wakes up to fight Livewire, there's like this powerful moment where he says "Booyah." And now you understand that Booyah comes from a point, like a very emotional point within him where he's thinking about his mom. It's like the memory of his mom is what gives him strength, so to speak. Yes, that's it right there. So I wrote that story and it didn't come out until February, but I've worked with Marquise on that story and I guess he liked it. And I guess they were talking internally about doing a Cyborg book. I didn't know that. I remember when they announced the series, it was like in November, and I was not attached to it at that point. And I remember thinking, just like the Milestone thing when it first came back, I'm just like, dang it, like I want to be a part of this. I want to be on a Cyborg book, and I didn't tell anybody that. This was just all internal. But then a month later, Marquise reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, I loved your story for DC Power, obviously, because we work together. We're doing this Cyborg book. Would you like to do it?" And again, I'm just like, absolutely. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably one of like 4 or 5 people that they're talking to. And I'm probably gonna have to pitch, and I gotta come up with really cool pitches because they're better than everybody else's pitches.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, why don't we talk in a couple weeks? I come up with some story ideas, and then we'll talk on the phone or whatever." I'm just like, "All right, cool." And it was during that phone call where I realized that like there were no other people that he was talking to, it was just me, and I was like, oh, this is real now. So yeah, what was interesting about that process was I didn't pitch in the traditional sense. Um, it was more of like me and Marquise just talking about the things that we wanted to do with the character. And then I eventually outlined from there, but I didn't come up with a bunch of ideas and run them by them. We just kind of like talked and we were all in agreement on kind of what we wanted to do, which was a really organic way of doing it. And yeah, that's what led into what your initial question was, with how I got the opportunity for Cyborg. It's been very fun process. Like you said, a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of anxiety,
none of that, none of
that. But it has been, the opportunity of a lifetime.
Sure.
And from the jump, me and Marquise, our whole idea is that we want this book to say it's not about the man versus the machine anymore. Like Victor is a human, he is a man with appendages, right? He's got, he's differently abled. How does he navigate the world going through a very traumatic experience? Obviously, his appendages give him superpower, so it's different than a lot of people. But at the same time, he's still a Black person, which is also very important, who went through a very traumatic physical, thing, and like that's got to take its toll up here.
Oh yeah.
So we wanted to explore that, and we wanted to explore his relationship with his father, and like a lot of people, me included, the whole stuff with his dad is like, we've been doing this for 40 years. Can we have some type of growth or resolution? It can't just be like, I hate my dad all the time. So the goal with this book, when it comes to that, is that Vic and his dad will hopefully come to a point, some type of reconciliation, and it won't continue to be like, I hate my dad because of what he did, which is a very valid thing. His dad turned him into Cyborg against his will, but we have to grow from that point.
Right.
So that's also a big goal for the book.
Nice.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a solid answer. That's no, like no, I like all of that, because it's, again, the cycles of just, yeah, my dad sucks. It's like, yes, like you said, yeah, it's very valid. A lot of people go through this for sure, but it's just like, it's nice to have a story that's like, that's written and drawn, that actually, yes, kind of, like you said, breaks that pattern. Like that's something hopeful. It's positive, that's good. And again, I just love, again, the mental health aspect that's being addressed here, because the dude was traumatized. Like, I feel like, I don't know, like, because again, I haven't read a whole lot of like OG Cyborg, but I don't know if it really got addressed enough. I always think about Deathlock with Dwayne McDuffie. Well, that's a whole lot of trauma being addressed there. But Vic specifically, not so much. But
it's really only addressed, at least in the comics, because in the show you see it a lot. It manifests in the Teen Titans show. It was manifest.
Doom Patrol did too. To be fair, Doom Patrol,
But in the comics, to my, I've read most of Cyborg's different runs. It mostly manifests through his disdain for his father. You don't see too much of the conversation outside of that, which is fine because they're still talking about it, but it's just like, your father did this thing, and you got to deal with that, but also you can deal with that separately from your father as well.
Right. Right.
And I think that's important to see, is to kind of navigate at the same time.
Yeah, agreed. No, Black mental health. So like, again, just seeing Vic in therapy right there, I'm like, okay, this is not something I see too often, but no, I think
it's important to see Black characters in therapy, because that, will give real Black people like the inspiration to be like, that is a normal thing. I should be able to feel okay with doing this. And then as a genre thing or a medium thing, I think we should see more superheroes going to therapy too. They deal with the craziest stuff every single day, and like we never take the time to kind of flesh out what they're feeling and what they're going through.
No, Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate that you're writing that kind of thing into it because the very humanizing part about it is really
Yeah.
important. I realized I was reading I think Heroes in Crisis is a
Yeah.
DC
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
and they're doing a therapy with like I guess an AI or a system, and they're talking to that, which
Yeah.
is the same thing, but they're letting their thoughts out.
Yeah.
So it's good to mental health is important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, I know I'm a little bit behind on some of my reading,
Yeah.
but in terms of like, I mean, obviously, yeah, you have some Batman stuff. Sure, that whole
Yeah.
everything Batman is
Mental
clearly for
health.
mental health. Even if they don't,
Yeah.
even if they don't come out and say it, oh, come on, this
All
dude.
mental health.
Where do all of his villains go? To Arkham
Yep.
Asylum, right?
He's someone who needs therapy himself, who's going out and beating other people that need therapy.
Yes, 100%.
I'm just like, bro.
That's why one of our friends would argue that Batman is trash, but and profiting off of like those facilities. But anyways,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I think that's another reason why, like I mean, I've talked about it before. Daredevil resonates with me because I mean that's Born Again, just
Yeah.
Matt Murdock in general. That's like a master's class and just kind of addressing like mental health issues and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And I think for the most part, some of those stories are handled really well. But yeah, I haven't seen too much of it. I guess I'm not reading a lot of Batman right now. I guess
Yeah.
too much of it in present day comics. So I really do appreciate what you're bringing to Cyborg.
I'll say too, I'm also just a fan of comics too. So I try to read just as much as I can write. It's harder these days because I'm so busy, but
Sure.
I was catching up on Dennis Culver's run of Doom Patrol right now in the
Mhm.
comics. And he's got characters going to therapy as well.
Nice. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
Cool. Like trying to think what else. Yeah, no, Heroes in Crisis. Well, I guess anything that Tom King kind of addresses to some extent.
Yeah. All his
Vision,
characters are just like really just like sad.
right? So what it was Vision, and then it was Mr. Miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some heavy stuff there, but no, it's good to kind of address that. But specifically, Black mental health, I doubt has really been featured in comics lately.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know everything, but so that makes this book really stand out. So yeah. So when is issue 3 coming out?
Issue 3 is coming out. That's a good question. I know sometime in September. I don't know the exact date. Let's look it up right now. Because everything is kind of thrown off by this whole Night Terror thing they're doing right now. Because DC's paused all of their books. No DC books are coming out except for the Night Terror stuff. I think Hawk Girl is like maybe the one book because it's debuting this week.
Oh, okay.
This upcoming week. Other than that, everything else is paused. So that's why the dates in my head are not coming to me.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's sometime in September. Come on, man. Sorry, my phone's being weird. This is not right. September 19th.
September 19th.
September
Okay.
19th. And it's an issue. It's my favorite issue that I've written so far. Also, going back to, I guess you could do the math and realize this, but like, I haven't really come out and say this too much because I feel like it's the imposter syndrome thing. And I don't want people to be like, oh, that's why I don't like this, or if they don't like it. But, Cyborg #1 specifically was the first time I ever wrote a full issue comic book in my entire life. So I'm essentially learning on the job here, which is what was getting to me when I first started the series. But now I'm just like, people that look like all of us don't really get that opportunity to learn on the job. It's always the white people that are getting the dudes who did Game of Thrones who had never worked in television before, but they somehow they were able to become showrunners. Like that stuff, you don't see people like us going through stuff like that. So I have to tell myself that, and I kind of walk myself off the ledge a little bit. But that being said, like I feel like I get better with each issue, or I'm more confident in my work with each issue that comes out. And Cyborg #3, at the point when they first announced it, when it came out in the previews, was my favorite issue. Now #4 is my favorite issue. I'm writing that one right now, and I'm like, oh, this is so much fun.
Yeah, because you're getting
Cyborg
better and
3,
better.
yeah, Cyborg 3 is a lot of fun, and I think this being a six issue series, like a lot of answers are answered in Cyborg number 3.
Cool.
So it was a lot of fun, and then we have the comic debut of Atlas, who was from the Teen Titans TV show. That was a lot of fun to do as well. Yeah, Cyborg 3 is gonna be good. I think I'm biased, but I think it's gonna be pretty good.
No, it's like as a writer, whenever as you start getting more comfortable and like feeling yourself like level up in terms of like your skill level, yeah, like the newer things you're gonna like resonate more with and be like, yeah, this is better. Like my other stuff, that's trash. No, this is actually
That's
good.
trash.
Because we're our own biggest critics. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, definitely as we level up. I mean, even in art too, it's like you're gonna look back. I know, yeah, right. You can attest to that.
Yeah.
Like you look back on things and go, ew, no, what was I thinking? But now, but yeah, no, we're on point now.
Yeah.
So, but no, that's what's up. So, Matt, anything else you're thinking about? You want to add about the book that you liked?
Yeah. I don't have it with me, so I can't see it by memory. But it's the main thing. Like I said, it's the fact that you're making him human. You're connecting with that part. That part's not being the most, I think.
Yeah.
Because normally it's just him fighting crime, and there's a little blurb of what he's dealing with. So I think that's my favorite part about it. If I had the book, I would go into it more. I know I left it in San Francisco by accident.
All good.
Yeah.
No, that was my goal with this, was like Cyborg's a character that's existed for about a little over 40 years, and he has not really been developed that much.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
So I wanted to, coming out of this, like whether I ever get to do any more with the character or not, like I wanted to definitely put my stamp on it, but also like flesh him out. So like whoever does come has more of a foundation to kind of build off of. And I having a bleeding disorder, right? I wanted to really elevate that status of him being someone who is differently abled, and bringing that to the forefront, as opposed to just him being like, oh, I guess I'm a machine now. Like it's deeper than that. It's, you had so much taken from you, yet you're still here. You have survivor's guilt, and now you have to navigate this body in a different way than you did before. Like those are all important things that I think that I'm trying to, flesh out with this character.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. Good stuff, bro. That's why I'm like, yeah, the 3 coming out. You confirmed that was September. Yeah, very excited. I've been enjoying, seeing your rise as you like keep leveling up. And then yeah, I want to see the conclusion of this arc.
Yeah.
For sure.
No,
yeah.
I am very excited.
All right. So anything else anybody got? Looks like we might be up on time.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a side note, I'm a writer and a comic book artist, and like I think talking to other writers will help me figure out stuff. So talking to you guys will probably be a good thing in the future. I mean, I have this whole big thing. He knows, Joe knows already, but it's like yeah. So
no, he's got a project on his hands.
Yeah.
but yeah, cool. Our next show,
that would be
August, probably first week in August, we want to say
August 30th.
Oh no.
No, July 30th, or is it?
Oh no, August, probably August 6th, right?
I think, because is it every other Sunday, right?
Yeah. So more than likely, probably August. Probably that first week in August is probably the next show. So
probably, or July 30th. That's 2 weeks from now.
Okay, but yeah, we'll probably be discussing our current reads. I'll probably be going back, rereading all of Morgan's stuff and just hyping him up. No bias at all. But yeah, so join us next time, and yeah, we'll just talk about some dope reads for all you guys to check them out, get some quality entertainment. And yeah, Morgan, one more time, put your social media handle out there so people can find you and get updates on Cyborg and also on your other projects.
Yeah, it is Mollennial. It's MOELLENNIAL, and that's across all social media platforms.
All right, there we go, folks. All right, thanks for
Millennial.
tuning in.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, we'll catch you next time. Sorry we didn't stream it this time, but we'll get it up on YouTube, and we'll see you guys later.
All right.